What is up, everybody? My name is Justin. This is Forever Self-Employed, all about pressure washing and code IQ. And in today's video, we're going to be giving you guys the complete blueprint to $1 million wash business. We're going to be talking about 5 easy steps to scale your business. Not easy, but to $1 million a year. We're going to start from the absolute bottom. We're going to walk you guys through the levels of the candy cane forest. First and foremost, we have the consideration phase, right? You might stumble across some videos here on YouTube. It might look like a great opportunity for you. You might go and look at some of our products, some of our courses. You might be looking into the equipment. How much does it cost? Yada, yada, yada. But the consideration phase is step number 1. Mike, you want to talk a little bit about this phase?
Okay. Is this the consideration phase, like the actual people that are genuinely considering this? Or is this the phase where people are making excuses to why they can't do it or why they're waiting to do it?
It encompasses everything. It just encompasses everyone that is even considering starting a pressure washing business. This is step 1 of how to get your $1 million business. Now, the key to success is how quickly you can transition from phase number 1, which is the consideration phase, into phase number 2, which is the side hustler. Consideration phase, Mike, maybe take us back to the beginning of your business, but maybe kind of walk us through where you were at when you were considering this opportunity.
Quick pause. If you don't know, Justin and myself offer a multitude of courses on owning and operating a successful service business. So for each phase of this video, you'll see a small graphic with a recommended course that we offer depending on what stage of your business you're in. You can find these at pwcourse.com. Back to the video. I was in a position where I knew somebody that had a small pressure washing business. He was going to sell it or dismantle it, and I had the opportunity to buy it. And very little consideration. I don't want to say it was a knee-jerk reaction because I was being guided by somebody who I trusted. The bottom line was I had an opportunity and I took the opportunity and it paid off. I didn't waste a lot of time thinking about it. Well, am I going to form an LLC first, or am I going to get insurance first? Or am I going to do this, or am I going to do that? Because that's what happens. I hear and I see way too many times people get caught up in the minutia, right? They get caught up in and at the end of the day, it's, are you dedicated to this? Do you have faith in yourself? Do you have faith in the market? Because there is market research that goes into this. If you live in a town of 300 in the middle of the desert, probably a pressure washing business isn't the right choice for you, right? But if you're in a market that's a viable market, then what are you going to wait around for, right? Take action, get moving, and get started. The longer you wait, the more likely it's not going to happen, and the more time is behind you that you could be actually building your business. So that was my initiation into the true entrepreneurial world that I live in, full time now. So.
Right. So step 1 within the consideration phase, the absolute key is how quickly you can take action. Same story for me, Mike. A little bit different, obviously, because I didn't have an opportunity to purchase a business. But I helped my dad wash both of my grandmother's houses, and I was living in a little apartment at the time, and I washed like the steps that I had in the front of it, and it made for an excellent before and after picture. From that point, I was like, I would love to do this and make money with it. So I made flyers. I passed out the flyers, and before you know it, I was in business. I didn't go out there. I didn't say, yeah, what LLC should I use, or do I have the best equipment? And yeah, I probably did things wrong for a while. A lot of people who found me early on YouTube used to make fun of me. They're like, dude, you're doing this all wrong. But at least I was taking action. I wasn't the one watching the video. I was the one making the video. So if you're in the consideration phase, get out of it as quickly as possible if you want to be successful, if you want to build $1 million business. Once we've exited consideration, once we start taking action into actually starting the business, then we've made it into the side hustle phase. So Mike, I'm going to pass it back over to you. Obviously, you purchased a legitimate business, so I don't necessarily think it was a side hustle. However, in the beginning, the business probably evolved to where you're doing bigger things.
It did. And so like, I'd almost want to rename this step or this phase, this stage, not just side hustle, but maybe side hustle part-time, right? Because in my eyes, side hustle has it's not a serious thing at all. And there are people that are just like, yeah, I'll just do it on the weekends, whatever. It's not a business. It's a side hustle. So if you're going from the consideration stage into this next phase, whether it's a side hustle or it's a legitimate business that you plan on growing and scaling, then I think for me, even though I did have an existing business, right? I said I paid $25,000 for it. At that point, the business annually was grossing only $45,000, right? We have about 50% margin in this business, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, depending on who you are and what your business model is. So it was grossing about what I paid for it, right? So about $20,000 is what the net profit was in that business the first year that I bought it. That is side hustle money. That is part-time money, right? We make that within a month or less now. And that was the yearly thing because that guy who I bought the business from, it was a side business for him. He was in the finance world and he had hired a guy or two to wash sidewalks and do some things, but it wasn't a full-time. It was a Saturday, Sunday. And that's just because that's all the business this guy was able to get as far as the work that he was targeting, which was dumpster pads, receiving areas, sidewalks, stuff like that for restaurants. 45 grand for 2 days a week, a year is not terrible, but that's not what I wanted, right? I wanted something, and I knew that this was something that I could scale. Now, we continued to do the side hustle work, but I also was leveraging relationships that I had, one of which was the guy who told me to buy the business. He had 14 high-end convenience stores, and I was like, we need to clean these. So we started doing those I want to say it was a bi-weekly basis. Canopies, the concrete, the sidewalks, the everything. And then I had another friend who was a CEO of another big convenience store chain. And it was great because we all worked out at the same gym. And those guys were always kind of button heads, flexing who's got the better business. Anyway, I think those guys had, I don't know, maybe 20 gas stations, convenience stores at the time. So I was able to quickly utilize people that I knew to grow the business quickly. Then after a while, many things happened, but I decided it was time to really kind of branch out and look more into residential, more into multifamily, because I thought that was a better business for me. And then we slowly got out of some of that flat work, if you will, the commercial work, as far as sidewalks and dumpster pads and stuff like that. I think it can take a little bit longer than you think. Everybody wants to think, oh, okay, I pulled the trigger. Now I've got a business. What am I going to do now? Because I don't have a bunch of customers. Well, it does take time. This is the growth stage. This is where you really got to decide who you are. Do you have grit? Do you have determination? Do you have what it takes to not only do the work, right? But do you have the wherewithal to run a business successfully, to market a business so you can generate the lead flow, so you can grow? That's one of the most important parts of this.
So a couple of things I want to touch on. I want to pull from what Mike had to say. First and foremost, he leveraged his relationships with others in order to grow the business, which is huge in the side hustle phase, right? Because we want to take advantage of every opportunity that's in front of us. Secondly, we need to figure out how to get more lead flow, because in the side hustle stage or the part-time stage, it's like you're just doing it once or twice a week, right? If you want to transition into the next stage, which is the full-timer, then the lead flow is something that we really got to knock down. So if you guys need any help with lead flow, be sure to check out the resource page, pwcourse.com. I'll have a link for this in the comment section description. The Local Domination 2 course is the best course we've ever built with regards to marketing your service business. If step 1 to step 2 was taking action, then step 2 to step 3 is going to be taking right action, dialed action, right? We want to leverage our relationships. We want to build a lead flow that's able to sustain a full-time full-time schedule. We want to reinvest into equipment. A lot of times what you get started with is not what's optimal in order to go full-time. So we need to reinvest. That was something that I did early on. I used my dad's pressure washer whenever I first got started, 2.5 gallons a minute. By the time I was going a little bit more full-time, I was in school at the time, I graduated up to a 4-gallon a minute. It was just something that needed to happen for me to be able to get jobs done. So reinvesting into equipment, and then we want to find more lucrative work. So we talk about it all the time on the channel. Washing roofs, lucrative work, house washes, driveway cleanings, bundled deals, upselling to customers whenever you're on site. If you get good at these things, the selling on site and all these different things, you're going to be able to transition from somebody who's just part-time into somebody that's full-time. But we never advise that right out of the gate because it's just a bad way to go. Mike, once we've transitioned into full-time, once we get the schedule booked out, once we've got the right equipment to get the jobs done, once we know how to upsell, once we've got the right stuff on the calendar, not just flat work, then we want to focus from going from full-time to actually getting off the truck. Now, you jump steps. You pretty much automatically got off the truck because you purchased the business. So from your perspective, what do you think is the hardest part for guys that are going full-time and trying to get off the truck after that to get to step 4?
I know what it is because I hear from guys all the time. And what I think it is, it's the ability to let go. The ability to let go, empower somebody else to be your representative on the ground doing the work. You can still be the boss. You can still be, the chief executive officer of everything. But in order for your business to scale, in order for it to grow, you have to understand that you will have to relinquish some of it to somebody else. The more that you can relinquish, the better. And the more that you can relinquish, the more time you're going to have to focus on other things that will move the needle in your business, like the marketing, the sales, right? Imagine if you hire somebody, right? Maybe they're a helper at first and you make that transition, you get them trained up for the way you want things to be done. Then you let them out on their own and they're out there working. Think about this. When you have the ability to go out there and go meet people, go, not door-to-door sales like residential, hey, we want to wash your house, but going into businesses and asking to talk to the facility manager, introducing yourself, building those relationships. That's when things really start to move in a business, when you can remove yourself from the daily operations and focus on the administrative and the sales and the marketing side of the business. There's a reason why big companies, it's not a one-man show. They have to have help. Allowing other people to help you is one of the biggest challenges I think guys have, right? Because at the end of the day, and this is something that this is just the truth. And if there are employees that are watching this, they're going to say, this is bullshit, Mike. You're full of shit. I'll say, no, I'm not, because I've been doing this for 20 years and I've always had employees, and I know nobody is ever going to be able to do it as good as I, right? No employee is ever going to be able to do it as good as you do. Understand that. Also, no employee is going to care as much as you do about your business. No employee, I don't care who it is. They don't care as much as you do. They never will. They are not incentivized. They don't have the vested interest in the business to care as much as you. Also, no employee is ever going to take care of your stuff like you do. You can take an owner-operator's trailer, brand new. They bought it yesterday. You take my trailer. I bought it new yesterday. The exact same trailer, owner-operator, employee. And I've got great employees. And we come back in a year and we look at those two employees or those two trailers, the one that the owner operator, it's going to look almost brand new, right? It's going to look great. And then you're going to look at mine and that shit needs to be replaced, right? Just today, I don't know if you guys can see this. Right here, this big scratch on my leg. I had to go buy a new fender for the Southeast Soft Wash trailer that we have because it's completely rusted out. And it's not a function of the trailer company, the manufacturer, anything with it is, we don't take care of our stuff like, and I say we, employees don't take care of their stuff like we do. So having the ability to understand things aren't going to be as perfect. They're not going to be as good. The employees aren't going to be as good a steward as you want them to be of every aspect of the business. That's something that's very difficult to relinquish. And that's something that you're going to have to do if you're going to want to grow and scale and add employees.
Absolutely. I would say that step 3 to step 4 is the hardest out of everything. And then it's downhill after that. So Mike, I do want to ask you a couple questions with regards to going from the full-time to off the truck. And obviously we built out a whole training just for this. I don't know if you guys knew that already, but if you go to pwcourse.com, how to scale the next level is everything that Mike pretty much has done within his business: employee hiring and retention, leveraging commercial jobs, business automation, remote quoting, the whole deal, and the marketing. There's just a lot that goes into basically getting off the truck. Anyway, Mike, let's get into the hardest piece about this whole equation, and that is how to get off of the truck. First and foremost, let's talk a little bit about hiring. Okay. DJ said how to find good guys to wash, right? How do we find good people? How do we find reliable people? What are your tips on that?
This is going to sound cliche, but it's 100% accurate. You get what you pay for. Okay. Unfortunately, early on in my business, I was a cheap ass and I was thinking I could get away with paying, guys 10, 12, dollars an hour. And I did for a really long time. And guess what I got for 10 or $12? I got 10 to 12 hour quality guys. These are people that are okay with making 10 to $12 an hour. And again, that's fine. I don't care if that's okay. And that meets your criteria for what you need to exist. But
just to give an example though, Mike, tell him the direct quote from an employee about when he needed to move patio furniture.
You mean the day that I fired him? That exactly. One?
Yep.
This fat bastard. I got a call from a customer or something, and they're like, yeah, everything looked good, except your guy didn't move anything from the front porch. We were cleaning the front porch. He didn't move any of the potted plants. None of the flowers, didn't even move like fabric pillows or anything like that, which got bleached out. And so I call him and I'm like, I just got a call from a customer. This was the house. This guy says, you don't pay me to move stuff. You pay me to wash stuff.
Dang, dropped the mic.
And know what I said?
What?
That was the last time I'm ever paying you to wash anything because you're fired. In order to get good people, you have to hire right. Okay. There is a process that I use that it vets people. There is a series of stages or obstacles, if you will, that potential employees need to overcome in order to prove to me that they actually are worthy of moving to the next step in the hiring process. And I go over all that in the Next Level program. So I'm not going to go over it here, but you have to set obstacles for them to overcome to prove to you that they are actually somebody that you might consider working for you, right? And if they can't pass these obstacles, they are not a good choice. You are going to have to end up going through this entire process very soon because they're not going to work out. So hiring, the hiring process is very, very important. You have to vet these people, and you have to understand the right questions to ask and the right funnel to put them through in order to even hire them. Then it comes to how much are you going to pay somebody? Now, if you pay somebody $10 an hour, you're going to get somebody that's worth $10 an hour. When you start raising that bar, you're going to get people that are looking at that position that are a little bit more qualified. They are a little smarter. They are going to be a better employee because they've already got the expectations that I am worth this, right? If you think you're worth $10 an hour, you're probably worth $10 an hour. But if you think you're worth $25 or $30 an hour, those are the type of people that I want. Okay. I had really good employees and I was probably underpaying them. And Justin said, hey, like, what would you do if so-and-so left tomorrow? And I was like, oh, well, that would suck. I'd have to find somebody. I'd have to train somebody. I'd have to, do this, that, and the other. And you don't want to be in that situation. So you have to take good care of your people. So that's one of the biggest things as far as hiring is you have to take care of them. You have to care about them. You have to make sure they got everything that they need. The equipment is operational. The trucks are in good order, that they're not, they've got all the tools they need. They've got the equipment that they need. They've got the replacement parts, the consumables on the truck. They've got backup soft wash pumps. So if something goes wrong, they've got it. And then you have to train them to know how to utilize all of these tools that you're providing, the equipment that you're providing, how to switch out a pump, how to switch out, the various things. We take it for granted as the guys that are out there doing it. That's another thing that you're going to have. You have to train these employees to be as good as they can possibly be, right? Yes, there is always going to be a learning curve. Yes, they are going to be calling you. They are going to be needing you to troubleshoot over the phone when they're out on the job. And, because things are going to come up. We know this. We live it every single day. Things come up almost every single day that, become second nature to us. And we know the workarounds. We know the little fixes. We know that chemical injectors can go bad sometimes and they're not going to pull the chemical. And sometimes you just need to unscrew it, spray a little WD-40, make sure that ball is nice and clean. The spring is functional, put it all back together and it starts sucking chemical again. It takes us 5 minutes, but think about how much time it took you, wasted time the first time that happened. And you were trying to troubleshoot and you didn't know what was going on. And you wasted all this time, right? Well, that time equates to money and profitability. And so training people up, getting them up to speed. And we use How to Wash to train all of our employees because we want them to know everything that could possibly go wrong. We want them to understand all the chemicals that we use on a daily basis. We want them to know the processes, the procedures, how to break down, how to break up, how to, protect the property, how to, everything. We use How to Wash to do that because if you don't have properly trained employees, they're going to waste time. They're going to waste money. They're going to underserve the customers and it's going to make you look bad. So education and training is so important.
We could probably do, and we probably will in the future, an entire sit down live like this talking about how to get off the truck. That's why we built the Next Level course, because literally there were so many components to it. And me and Mike actually spent 6 months building that out. That was a huge undertaking, but we did it to give you the keys to the kingdom with regards to how to get off of the truck. Because there's just so many things that go into it. Like Mike said, hiring, one thing we didn't cover is turnover, right? So if you hire low, then your turnover is higher, and then you have to train more people. And that was my next question, Mike. Training. How do we train employees? Is it, now obviously you're set, but in the beginning, I'm sure it was a little bit more difficult, right?
Yeah. So, obviously I had to be trained and I trained by doing the work, right? I bought the business. We had employees and it was very straightforward. This was it. We were laying down a degreaser. We were letting it dwell for a couple minutes. And then we were surface cleaning. We were using hot water units. We were using Landa surface cleaners. We were doing, like I said, dumpster pads, receiving areas, sidewalks, relatively straightforward. And that was the gist of my business initially for the first year or two. Then we started to move into, and even when we were doing all the gas stations, it was still degreaser, pressure wash. I'll never forget. I was like, okay, we need to start getting into residential. We didn't even have bleach tanks on our trailers. We had degreaser tanks and water tanks. That's how one horse pony we were. And so then I decided, I was forced because of the economy, we needed to diversify. And with that diversification came the need to get into residential. So my guys had never done residential. I thought, okay, if I'm going to be able to teach them how to do it, I have to know how to be able to do it. I did a bunch of research and I went out and I'll never forget, it was a 2-story up on stilts, yellow house. And I get out there and I've got bleach and we're going to I'm going to downstream, and I'm there, and I'm doing it. And this house, it was a yellow house, but it was green, covered in mildew, and my bleach wasn't even touching it. And I was like, what in the world? Like, what's going on? And I was trying to figure out, was it chemical injector and blah, blah, blah. And I ended up packing up and leaving without even telling the customer, because I didn't know what to do. So back then it was internet forums. I start reading and I start understanding a little bit more about, concentrations and mix ratios and the dilution factor when you're dealing with different chemical ratios and the bleed, all of the things that we teach in How to Wash. But you have to learn, everybody learns somewhere. This was 18 years ago, almost 19 years ago. And so I had to learn how to do everything so then I could teach. And that's when I said, remember I said earlier, I was like, nobody can do it as good as I can. Even today, I've got great employees and I challenge them all the time. I said, I guarantee you I can do a better job than you. And of course they think, oh, you just sit in an office or you make videos, you're not going to be able to do it. Well, goddamn, yes, I can. I can wash probably better than everybody watching this too. But again, that's just me being an arrogant ass. And I'm kidding. You guys probably are way better, more efficient, younger and faster and stronger. But you have to understand how to do it yourself in order to train. And then you have to train them the way you want them to do it. But also, this is something key. You also have to be open-minded to the fact that there are better ways than the way you're doing it. And sometimes an employee can come up with a better way. Sometimes an employee is more efficient than you. They see something that you don't see. And if you're like, well, it's my way or the highway, you're losing out on efficiency and possibly money too, right? Also, the trust of the employee, right? The employee's like, well, I kind of think my way's better. And if you're a tyrant, they're going to be like, yeah, screw that guy. Like, I know my way's better. And as soon as you leave, they're going to do it your way. They're the way they do it anyway. So I think having a firm understanding that you don't know everything, there are better ways out there, be open-minded, but also make sure that you train everybody up the way that you want your business to be represented and the way you want it to be run.
So as you guys can see, we have talked more about this topic than any of the previous topics, and that is because this is the hardest step. This is the hardest step to get into. There's so many other questions that we could get into, but we're not going to today because I just wanted to give you guys a step, right? It's the steps. So first stage was consideration. You're thinking about starting the business. Second stage, you take the action from thinking about it and actually doing it, and now you're in the part-time phase, or whenever you can do the job. You then graduate from part-time into full-time whenever you take the right actions, when you get the lead flow right, when you start doing the right jobs, when you start upselling, when you start using software like QuotaIQ to start keeping track of customers, sending estimates, payments, all that kind of stuff. And then comes the hardest part. You're full-time in your business. You start to max out. You start to reach that top level capability and you start bumping up against it, doing the same numbers every year. How do you break through that? You got to get off the truck. It's the only way to scale, and it's the hardest part. Now, once you get to where Mike's gotten, off of the truck, multiple crews running, everything systematized, you now have something packaged that's super nice, and it's the hardest thing to build. This is why guys won't get off the truck. This is why they will die on the truck, because it's the hardest piece. But once you have it and you're off of it, now you can sell the business. And this is ultimately how you build the $1 million wash business. Because Mike, right now, your company does a ton of money a year, and you could probably multiply that out times a few times, and you would be able to sell your business for a good amount, over $1 million, right? So kind of
without a doubt.
Kind of speak to what had to happen from, when you took over the business of just running it, and then obviously all these steps, but like into where it is now, to where it'd be perfect to sell and somebody would take the keys over.
The first and most important thing is you have to keep good books, right? Because you can assign any value to a business, but unless you have got the books to keep it, to back it up and say like, yes, we did X amount of dollars this year. These were our expenses. This was our labor. And a legitimate business that's doing that type of money has that information. And if you don't, or if you're just starting out, like start now. QuotaIQ can handle all of that for you if that's the route that you want to go. But you have to have actual, the information to prove what the business is worth.
So you took over the business, right, Mike? And the business was okay, but you implemented all these systems and things in place that almost make it run like a machine at this point.
A diversification. If you have all of your eggs in one basket, and like for me, the economy took a shit and restaurants stopped cleaning because people weren't going. This was 2009. The economy forced my hand. I had all of my eggs in one basket and I panicked. So that made me realize I have to be in residential. I have to be in multifamily. I have to be in commercial. I have to be in industrial. We have to have our fingers in a bunch of different pies because, businesses fluctuate. If you're solely dependent upon residential, what happens in the winter? Things slow down. But if you've got route work, if you've got big apartment jobs that are lined up for the slower times, then you have the ability to stay healthy. The health of the business is continual, and it's what's the word? It doesn't go
right. More consistent.
You have to build the business to a point where it is an automated system, either by hiring people or implementing software and processes in your business that streamline it. Because if you are that guy that is doing everything the hard way, just like Justin said, you're never going to be able to scale because you're doing everything yourself. There's not enough time in the day. You're capped at how much you can make. So automation, systems, hiring the right people, and diversification are the keys, in my opinion, to being able to grow the business to something that somebody would actually want to buy. And even then, it's a difficult sell because a lot of what we do, like our equipment, there's a value to it, right? We can assign a very specific value to equipment. Then you've got relationships, right? You've got customers. Now, customers, who are they loyal to? Are they loyal to the owner? Are they loyal to the business? Are they loyal to what is it that they're loyal to? So it's always been difficult. I've bought a couple businesses that I thought were going to really help my business grow. And I ended up just with some freaking equipment because the customers, they weren't loyal and they went a different direction. There are so many components that come into play when you're talking about, selling a business. So,
but essentially, if the easiest way to get to $1 million wash business is to build it up through all these different steps and then ultimately sell it, because
and maybe it's not selling it off. Like, what's the end game? And I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about. Like, you have to have an end game. Like, we set goals every year. Like, okay, I want to achieve this, and this, and these are the ways that I'm going to do it. Well, okay, so do you want to retire at age 50, age 60, whatever the case is, right? How are you going to get there? Set the goal and then reverse engineer how you're going to achieve that goal. That's how we reach goals. We have to have realistic things in place that will allow us to get to those goals or to exceed those goals. Maybe it's you've got an employee that has potential to take over the business, then you're able to kind of take a back seat, maintain a portion of the business, keep a profit sharing situation. One of my friends, he owns a sizable automotive repair shop, right? Great business. And those dudes make a freaking killing. It was his dad's business. Then he and his brother took over. His dad kind of, he just sits at home now and he gets a paycheck. Now, these guys, my friends, they're getting to the age where their sons are coming up and they're going to take over. And then they get to kind of step back and enjoy the fruits of the labor, right? They spent years and years building this up. Now it's time to enjoy what you built. Far too often, I see guys that are 60 years old, 65 years old, and they built great businesses, but there's no end game. They're like, oh, it's still Saturday and Sunday and I'm still out working. Well, goddamn. If I'm 60 something years old, there is no way I'm going to be out working. I want to have people in place that can manage this for me, or I want to sell it. So having an end game, whether it's selling it outright, bringing somebody in, maybe it's a family member. I mean, we've got Elijah, another one of the guys that has done unbelievably well for himself. He's got kids that love the business. They're in the business. And eventually Elijah's he's not an old guy at all. But at some point, I bet you Elijah wants to take the boat out and hang out with the wife as opposed to being out there working and managing every single day. So there's a lot of ways to, that final level, whether it's selling it, whether it's easing your way out and still getting a piece of it, but if you don't have a game plan on what you want to do, you're going to be 90 years old and you're still going to be out there freaking washing. And that sounds miserable.
So if you take anything from this video, build out an exit strategy. I'm going to go through the steps one more time. Consideration, right? Get out of consideration as fast as possible. Get into the side hustle, get into the part-time, take action to get there. From side hustle and part-time, we then need to come up with a concrete plan, concrete strategy. We need to get dialed in with our efforts, leverage our relationships, figure out our lead flow, do all the things in order to build the schedule out for the full week. From that point, we need to say, how can we step out of this? Because then we're hitting our max. We're coming up against that glass ceiling, if you will, from full-time into getting off of the truck and just being the operator of the business. And then the last step of that, as Mike mentioned, would be kind of your exit strategy. Do you sell the business? Do you sell off parts of the business? Do you bring someone else in to run it and you keep a piece of it? So these are the 5 levels of how to get to the $1 million wash business. If you guys enjoyed it, definitely hit the thumbs up button.